Hello, very, very enthusiastic. I completely support and agree with Jill's enthusiasm. I'm coming from a slightly different perspective because I've got two hats professionally. I've been qualified as a solicitor now for coming on 29 years. I can't believe where the years have gone, but they've rolled on. And in the last year, I joined the City Law School in City University, which very proudly joins the University of London today. And I've had a particular brief at the City Law School, which has been solicitor apprenticeships. And it's been a very interesting personal journey for me as somebody who has been involved in recruiting trainees and paralegals over the years, working as a mentor, particularly with BAME students, and having an awareness and insight into some of the struggles that they face and continue to face to enter the legal profession. It's been very interesting to marry that up with my experience of largely setting up the new solicitor apprenticeship programme at the City Law School, which launches as of today. I don't know if you've seen my abstract, but I sent in an abstract to the conference organisers some months ago, and in that I touched on the ongoing issues and concerns about social mobility, the limited extent to which social mobility has been achieved across the professions, and looking at diversity issues. So I thought I'd send in a paper and raise issues specific to my direct experience as a member of the legal profession. And I kind of thought about the preparation of this presentation today and thought it'd be useful just to throw out some statistics just to demonstrate some of the ongoing concerns around diversity and social mobility. And in terms of the legal profession, and this may not be news to many of you, there are only 6.1% partners in law firms in England and Wales describing themselves as BAME. The judiciary, only 5% are drawn from BAME backgrounds. And I've got a court hearing coming up soon in the Supreme Court. And I know, obviously we've got the wonderful Lady Hale in terms of, some movements with social mobility and diversity. But there are no BAME judges in the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court as of 2016 in this multicultural society that we have. Now, I very much believe in being positive and constructive, so I haven't come here to kind of moan about the situation. It's basically to say that I do feel that initiatives such as degree apprentices, and specifically the solicitor apprenticeship, is a real possible mode or route for addressing some of these issues that I've been reading about since I was a teenager. And that was a long time ago, sadly. Now, why have we got issues around social mobility? I've got a 19-year-old daughter who's just about to start her second year at medical school. And so, I'm very, very aware of the anxieties and concerns facing our young generation around some of the obstacles to studying. And of course, one of the first obstacles is this issue of tuition costs. It's obviously a disincentive to many from lower and middle socio-economic backgrounds, and it's going to be exacerbated and intensified even more as a result of cap on tuition fees being lifted. And I've had my daughter and other family members who are undergraduates already worrying about the impact on the debt they're going to have as a result of the increase in interest on loans. The other thing I want to mention, actually, is I think it's been very interesting that in the news we've had in the last couple of weeks the government identifying another group of individuals who are kind of disproportionately represented in higher education and in the professions, and that's Theresa May's current agenda in terms of looking at issues around accessibility for white working class boys. So my agenda is not purely around BAME, it's talking about social mobility and diversity across the piece, and that also includes looked after children, young people with special educational needs who can achieve if they're given all the support and recognition that they deserve. To be very specific in terms of the legal profession, to give you an idea of some of the obstacles that individuals face now, after an individual completes their law degree or the equivalent and their professional course, to qualify as a solicitor or a barrister, there's another hurdle that they've got to leap. And for a solicitor, at the moment, they have to obtain a training contract. And for a barrister, they then have to obtain a similar kind of apprenticeship or training period, and it's for a post called pupillage. And they've always been in short supply. There's an increasing number of people taking law degrees and entering the legal profession, which means that there's a real finite number of these really crucial posts that people need to obtain in order to reach their goal of qualifying. So I mentor, and I've had a number of undergraduates and indeed those who've already got their legal practice course who actually hit the ceiling quite early because they've studied, they've achieved well, they've obtained their degree, their professional course, they've acquired a debt as well, but they're finding it increasingly difficult to get to that further tier of obtaining a training contract because it's very, very competitive, and there's a disproportionate number of BAME students who are left outside in the cold trying to qualify finally through obtaining one of these posts. And my genuine concern that, we've been talking about social mobility for a while. There was a social mobility unit set up by the government however many years ago. And what I'm really concerned about is with tuition costs and all the other hurdles, to what extent is it going to become the case that a number of excluded students and individuals will decide in years to come, this isn't for me, I can't aspire to the legal profession or other businesses, the kind of courses that you run. And it's something that I really worry about, and it's something that I think that as a society we really, really need to address, and not just by use of words. So, apprenticeships. When I joined City Law School a year ago, it was a week after there was an announcement of a new Trailblazer solicitor apprenticeship, which I was very, very excited about. And it's coming into effect now. And I'll just give you a quick run through of it, because basically it means that an individual, and the government's to an extent focusing on school leavers. So you can have a situation whereby an 18-year-old acquires their A-levels and is recruited by a private firm or in-house department. We're very proud at City Law School to be working in partnership with ITV, who went public earlier this year to announce that they're one of the first in-house legal departments to recruit a solicitor apprentice. So the employer will enter into an employment contract with the apprentice. It'll be a 6-year programme generally, and at the end of that 6-year period, the individual will qualify. They'll be working 4 days a week at the firm, and they'll have a day for day release. And at City Law School, they will be having an induction very shortly with us, and then monthly face-to-face sessions. And in terms of how we structured the course, at the end of the 4th year, provided they've passed all their modules and reached the acquired standard, they will acquire a degree in LLB in legal practice. And in the last 2 years, we'll focus on the professional skills-based curriculum that is currently practiced or provided by law schools for those who are graduates. So there are enormous benefits of this 6-year scheme. I know that for some employers, the thought of committing to an individual for 6 years can understandably be of concern. It's going to be a flexible scheme, so we've had some discussions already about possibly shortening the scheme. But potentially, and we've got some employers who've come on board pretty quickly, it's a 6-year commitment, potentially to an 18-year-old or to an older individual. And that individual will have paid employment, and they'll be learning on the job, which I think is really key, because we've had discussions already about the gap between learning in terms of academic abilities and skills gaps in the markets. The whole issue about individuals leaving university and not being as employable as employers might wish them to be. In a sense, I think this is ideal. It's a combination. So you've got your apprentice learning on the job, studying, and really, really acquiring their skill sets as they move through the 6-year programme. Huge benefit for those who come from less privileged backgrounds is that tuition costs are wholly covered by the government and by the employer. So this is a practical impact of this huge thing that Jill's just been talking about, the levy on employers. The impact for individuals who would otherwise be denied access to a degree and to a profession of this nature is that they're given access to it because they're not having to weigh up that really difficult situation that many are having to think about. Can I afford to do this? It can be terrifying. And my daughter's already talking to me about really wanting to avoid qualifying as a doctor and having a debt of over £50,000. And we're looking very, very closely at how she can manage all of that. And she's, in a sense, privileged to be able to have that discussion with me and to have the support. But can you think of all those young people who aren't able to access that support and who therefore have that door closed before they've even had a chance at giving it a little push to see whether this is something for me. They have the ability, and they really ought to have the right to see through those career aspirations. Big plus, no student debts, and the structure of the programme will mean that you're not going to have individuals stuck after they've obtained their academic qualifications because they can't get this elusive training position because it's built into the 6-year programme. And I think also very, very beneficial is that you're likely to have commitment and engagement from the employer. So if you have an employer who employs you, is paying you, contributing towards your tuition costs, it's very, very likely that they're going to want to invest in you long term. So again, that's a real plus for the employer and also a real plus for the apprentice. So in my view, the above attributes provide real prospects of this being an exciting new approach to individuals being able to access the legal profession and potentially really deal with social mobility issues. Nothing's perfect. So what are my concerns or queries about the process? Obviously, it's very, very new. It's just starting. But some of the things that I query in terms of the long-term success of the solicitor apprenticeship scheme, and indeed this will transfer, I'm sure, to other apprenticeships, is the view of parents, especially those who are committed to their children acquiring social mobility. I was the first in my family to attend university. It was a big deal, and it remains a big deal for many parents and young people, and quite rightly so. And so I think there is going to be the issue around making that choice. There will be young people and parents who will be weighing up, shouldn't I be going to university full-time? Shouldn't I be having this experience that was touched on this morning? You know, we've had, I think Sir Anthony talking about, it's not just about academia, it's about coming out as a fulfilled, whole and rounded person. There are going to be those questions. How widespread is knowledge about the scheme and the value of apprenticeships generally? I mean, obviously the government has been very committed to the apprenticeship programme for quite a while now, and its commitment is to have 3 million in place by 2020. I think it's going to be important for that agenda to be spread equally across society, across schools, across colleges, so that the benefits of the apprenticeship scheme are really spread fairly. Are schools and colleges likely to promote apprenticeships? We have to look at, well, how do you judge a good school? How do you judge a good college? And certainly an element of that is, how many of their young people get good places at good universities. So there's a whole mindset around outcomes, what's successful, is there potential scope for conflicts of interest between schools and colleges and young people? All questions really to be thinking about and for those of us involved in the field to be trying to address. Will employers go out of their way to appoint academically capable apprentices from less advantaged backgrounds? We had mentioned earlier today that there's inevitably a particular type of student from a particular type of background who will sail through, who will get into the universities. They're attractive to the universities because of the academic results that it's assumed that they will bring. I don't believe for one moment that there aren't also young people from less able or less advantaged backgrounds who could also bring the good results that universities seek. It's quite interesting looking at Twitter and looking at some of the academies and other schools, very, very proudly posting pictures of their successful students, a number of BAME students with A's and A+, and I think it's important to do this because we need to get the message out there that university is not the preserve of one particular socio-economic group. abolition of the Education Maintenance Award, I really didn't understand it at the time. How on earth did that tally with the social mobility agenda that the government had at the same time? Tuition fees, don't get me started, you know, in terms of the impact on young people and parents. These have been problems, you know, they've been like grenades thrown out there, really, and it doesn't make sense that these steps were brought in at the same time as having governments in power very much pushing the social mobility agenda. How on earth does it make sense? It doesn't. So, what's required? What's needed? What's the way forward? I think it's just very important to have joined up thinking. We've got a really good opportunity here. We've got the levy coming in. I know that's going to cause lots of disruption, but it can be used as well to the advantage of the social mobility agenda, and also in terms of increasing the skill sets of students so that you have productive students who are employable and who can bring real value added to organisations because they've been trained from day one and at the same time acquiring their academic qualifications. And I think that there has to be a real commitment to ensure that there's participation and opportunities given to a whole range of apprentices from a whole range of backgrounds. So that means targeting all of the schools and all of the colleges, irrespective of ethnicity, irrespective of, you know, where they are, whether it's kind of urban areas with sink schools, inverted commas. I've never believed in the concept of sink schools, but I think that universities, colleges and employers must really have a good, positive mindset and give true equal opportunities in terms of access to apprentices, and really look at how they go about, for example, recruiting apprentices. Joined up thinking is vital, otherwise I think this apprenticeship programme could be a real sorely missed opportunity to really push and implement social mobility. I think time will tell, but I believe in being positive and constructive. Time will tell whether the apprenticeship programme will be supported and promoted. And I think it's encouraging that apprenticeships are going to be an option on the UCAS forms. And I think that's just really, really, really positive and makes me feel really hopeful that we can really see some benefit from the programme. And I'm really hoping that employers will think outside the box and will take part, for example, in social mobility schemes. There is, for example, a legal social mobility partnership. So a number of city firms in London have joined together and they work in partnership with state schools. They give the young people work experience, summer experience, mentor them, and really see them through to A-levels. And there were some really good success stories published in the Evening Standards of some of these students getting really good results and being really well supported by these firms. And I'd just like to see that, that kind of practice duplicated and taken on board by employers across the field. So in conclusion, it's my view, there's much to be done in terms of the social mobility agenda, in terms of increasing diversity in the workplace. That's the name, the title of my workshop. How can we secure social justice, and how can we get diversity in the workplace? And I think that apprenticeships is a really good opportunity to do so, but I think that we have to be mindful of some of the drawbacks and to make sure that as education providers, as employers, as schools, as parents, we're really mindful of some of the traps that we could quite easily fall into. Thank you.